All right, testing, testing. Great. Now let us continue with our explanation of our mock examination. Now, obviously, for this video or the next video, depending on the duration of this video, right, we are going to talk about paper two, the long question and the short questions, right? So let's get started right here. 好啦，我哋開始啦，好嘛? Now, let's look at section A first. Now, section A here, the first question, a very standard question, it says, right? Now, a Food Panda charges a delivery fee for each order. Now, consumers will need to pay more than the dine-in prices because of the transportation cost, right? Now, it asks, would the cost necessarily be higher? Now, basically, 99% of the time, when they ask you necessarily, I think you know the answer would be not necessary, right? Now, but the explanation how you're going to approach this question is that first, you need to tell me opportunity cost should contain two parts. First part, we call it the explicit cost, or some of you would like to call it money cost, right? And the implicit cost, or some of you would like to call it non-monetary cost, or simply time cost, right? And then next thing you need to point out, by ordering Food Panda, you save time. You save up time that can be used in other alternatives. 係咪？啲時間有其他 alternative 㗎嘛？ If the saving in time cost is higher than the delivery cost, extra money cost, right? Then the overall cost would be lower. Okay, 好嘛? Now this is a very standard question, but the important thing is that you need to tell me the definition. May not be the word full cost, but you need to tell me there are both money cost and time cost. OK， 得唔得？你要講呢兩個部分出現咗啦。All right， 好嘛？ So this is question one. Now question two, also a very standard question, right? Under the influence, lower income student can apply for subsidy to purchase e-learning. 係嘛？好啦 ，explain how this can enhance equity in our society. Now remember equity, there are two parts, right? We can talk about opportunity or we can talk about income equality. 嗱，兩個都得嘅，冇問題嘅，好嘛？Now here the answer we provide is that it helps equalizing opportunity because the lower income student, they are usually more prone to not be able to go to have e-learning, right? Now, with this program, they will not be deprived of the chance of learning. And this can improve their future income and thus narrowing the income inequality in the future. Or another way, you can tackle it on the more even income distribution. All right. Now, how we explain this? Because we know the subsidy adds to the purchasing power of poor people, but not the rich people. Now, therefore, the percentage increase in purchasing power for poor people will be larger than the percentage increase, or actually none, right, in purchasing power for the rich, meaning the income equality will become better, 係咪 becomes better 會好咗咯，係咪 So you can answer in both way, no problem, as long as you do the explanation, then no problem. OK 好嘛，好啦 next one. The next one here, you are given the year-on-year change, percentage change in CPI. Now, basically, this is telling you inflation rates. Basically, right? Basically, this is inflation rates. Or I should be more specific, because this actually happened. So this is the actual inflation rates. Suppose people did not expect any change in the price level. 好啦 They did not expect any change. Somehow, the actual inflation rate, or I should type it here, right? Now we know the actual inflation rate is greater than the expected inflation rates. What is this? This is what we call unexpected inflation. what do you call unexpected inflation 咯 ？OK 好嘛 ？With the unexpected inflation, we know that the actual real would be smaller than the expected real. Now, real 咩？一陣間先講，係咪 ？Maybe real interest rate, maybe real return, something like that. 好嘛 ？All right, then let's see whether the following person would gain or lose. Right now, Wilson deposited a sum as a time deposit. Okay, now remember time deposit. This is fixed rate. OK 好嘛？嗱 we know Wilson will lose because the unexpected inflation 嗱你要出到呢個字啊係嘛 unexpected inflation would lower the purchasing power okay of the principal and the interest received okay or more ideally you should answer lower than expected okay 好嘛 so this is part A now what about part B now part B you need to do something extra because you're given the percentage here, right? Now, so Mary would lose this much we know, right? Because by Fisher's equation, actually, right? Let's do it. By Fisher's equation, we remember nominal equals to real plus inflation. Then we should be able to get, now nominal is 5%, right? On one hand, the actual real plus actual inflation. Actual inflation. Let's say here, around, I think this will be around 2.5%, right? Around something around that. On here, sorry, actual inflation, 2.5, around 2.5 in these 3 years. On another hand, what about the expected real? Plus expected inflation is 0. 好啦 so I think you would see expected real return is 5%. But on the other hand, the actual real is only 2.5%. 好啦，所以咧個字眼最重要啦。The actual real rate of return would be lower than the expected real rate of return. Therefore, this is an unexpected loss. Because of the unexpected, 當然啦要交啦係咪 This is unexpected inflation. 係咪你都要講翻呢個 unexpected inflation 啦？好嘛 All right, so this is how we approach this question. Remember, because you're actually given the percentage. Therefore, it will be wise to be more specific. The actual real lower than the expected real, something like that. OK， 好嘛，寫清楚啲係嘛，不妨寫埋 Fisher's equation 出嚟，不妨。OK， 好嘛 All right, let's do the next one. Electric car manufacturer, right? Currency bought 51% of the share, 係嘛 meaning becomes the biggest shareholder. 好啦 a lithium power cell manufacturer, a car lithium power, of course, right? 係咪梗係講車啦？係嘛？好啦 explain what type of business owner does Everpower. You see there is a stock code, right? Now, therefore, this is a listed company. Okay, as its share can be traded in the stock market, 係嘛？ Or some of you mentioned publicly, 係嘛？可以嚟公開地做啦 ，publicly, right? Or you can call it public limited company, also okay. Listed company or public limited company, no problem, both okay. Okay, 好嘛，好啦 state the type of expansion. You can either say this is a lateral expansion or a forward vertical expansion. 得唔得？ No, obviously, right? Sorry, this should be backward, not forward. 打錯字，對唔住。It should be backward, right? 係咪啊？ Since remember, electric car is the output, right? In order to make an electric car, obviously you need power, you need cell, 係咪啊？ The car power, car battery, in order to make a car, right? So this is a factor of production. The car battery is a factor of production for the electric car. 係咪啊？ Since you are securing the factor of production, the previous step, we call it the backward vertical. Okay, so it is to ensure a steady supply 嗱，呢啲係自己知啦，好唔好啊？嗱 ，ensure a steady supply of factors. Okay, this is a factor. Okay, expand existing brand name, economies of scale, etc. 好嘛？嗱，嗰啲自己睇書啦，好嘛？嗰啲唔解啦，好嘛？呢條係容易嘅。This is an easy question. Now what about next one? Now the unemployment rate stood at this, right, which is the same. The number of unemployed population increased by around this. Okay, now we need to explain why unemployment rate remained unchanged despite an increase in the unemployed population. Several things you need to write. First, you need to write down this formula with 嗱提咗好多次啊呢個 times 100%。嗱，你又唔寫成100%，我真係幫你唔到。我講咗好多次噶啦，好嘛 ？You need to times 100%，right？ 係嘛 ？This will score you 1 mark. And then you need to tell me it is the percentage change. 嗱，唔好再寫 change 啊。In unemployed population will be the same as that of the percentage change of labor force. Then the rate would remain constant. 得唔得？嗱，即係兩個重點。First, write down the formula with times 100%. Second, it is the percentage change. OK， 兩樣都要有，好唔好啊？咁就3分啦。好啦 ，then we know unemployment rate has increased since that, right? And then GDP growth rate dropped by that amount, right? 係咪 we know this is a recession and other characteristics, right? 喂，背書啦，好唔好啊 ？Decrease in consumption, inventory starts to accumulate, a drop in business perspective, etc. 好唔好啊？呢個我唔講啦。好嘛？呢背書嘅真係係嘛 ？Mr. Chan 係咪 Mr. Alfred Chan? This time he set the paper super standard, just to remind you to do revision. OK， 好嘛？好啦 ，next one we are on to ADAS， 好嘛 ？Point E is the initial short run equilibrium. OK， now obviously from this diagram you should be able to identify since Y0 is larger than YF, this would be a so-called inflationary gap， 係咪啊？呢個 inflationary gap 咯，係咪啊 ？Since Y is somehow bigger than YF。好啦 ，now explain how adjusting RRR can lower the output level to YF. Now we have this situation, right? Now in order to lower to YF, we either lower SRAS or we lower AD, right? Obviously, if you remember, 係咪？呢度加唔到啦。Now, if you remember, right, our required reserve ratio, it should lower AD, 係咪？應該係整條 AD 會跌咗啦。It should shift to here, to the red one. Okay, here. It should shift to this red one, 係嘛 into 81, 係嘛 How should raise the required reserve ratio, 係咪要 RRR 要升 Why? Because with higher RRR, we know money supply will drop and interest rate would go up, meaning C and I would drop, AD would drop also, 好嘛 AD 就會跌啦 and short run output would shift from Y0 to YF. OK， 好嘛？所以你記得啦，呢條啦，我哋 shift 翻向左邊嗰度啦，好嘛 ？Remember, this is to increase the RRR， 係嘛？嗱 ，just for your information， 我之前啲片都講過㗎啦，係嘛 ？I have told you many times. Remember, the shortcut is whatever rates or R increase. Basically, we know AD must drop. 唔使問啊，乜嘢 R 乜嘢 rate 向上 ，AD 就向下啦，好嘛 ？OK， so this is a shortcut we use. 好嘛 ？All right, now next one. Question 7 here. Now question 7, this is a very standard question on our international trade. 好啦 ，let's see. Now it can be produced with the each unit of resources. So we are talking about 1 unit of resources. Okay, 好嘛? We need to explain which one of them has a comparative advantage. So let's see, 好嘛? Opportunity cost of producing one clothing. Okay, remember, one clothing. Basically, we know, or I should put it this way, right? By equating them, 4C equals to 16R. That means 1C would be equals to 4R. 係咪？基本上係咁睇嘅，係嘛 ？So 係嘛？嗱，in exam remember to write clearly the steps, right? It would be 16 divided by 4, 4 unit of rice. Same here. 望望啦 From the table we know 3C equals to 15R, meaning 1C equals to 5R. OK， 係咪咁睇嘅啫？好嘛 ？Again, show the steps clearly. Now, since country A has a lower opportunity cost, therefore, it will specialize and export. 係咪 specialize in and export clothing as the cost is lower, a comparative advantage. Right? 好嘛？好啦 Then next one. Suppose country A and country B trade with each other. We know the terms of trade. 27 rice to 6 clothing. 係嘛 Here. 26C. 咪先係咪啊 No. 27R equals to 6C. 係咪啊 Then you simplify it. We know 1C equals to 4.5 rice. 好啦 Then the gain per unit. 好啦，而家我哋講啦 transportation cost per unit of clothing. 每個 clothing 啦 0.2 unit of rice has to be shared equally by both country. 係嘛？每人俾0.1啦。OK， 好嘛 For country A. Now we know country A would export clothing, right? So let's see the gain for each unit. 嗱，聽清楚係 each 啊，唔係 total 啊。Each unit of export. Here, let me write clearly, right? Gain per unit of export of clothing for country A will be this, right? First of all, 4.5 rice minus its own, its own opportunity cost 4. But then 0.1, 0.2 shared equally, right? So 0.1 unit of rice needs to be. So each unit of export would gain 0.4 unit of rice. Okay, 好嘛? So how many units of clothing are they exporting? 6. Now therefore, the total gain would be 6 times 0.4 equals to 2.4 unit of rice. Okay, 好嘛? Again, nothing special. Very standard questions that we have here. 好嘛? 好啦, now next one. 好啦, now this question, remember, there is no need to explain using words. We ask you use one supply demand diagram to illustrate. So no need to write anything. Just draw the diagram. Then it will be good enough. Okay, 好嘛？畫個 diagram 就得㗎啦。好啦，now let's see. Price of private property has stayed at a very high level, right? So many complain. So recently, we know two things happen. First, interest rate on mortgage loans decreased. 好啦，我哋諗諗呢個發生咩事啦 ？Remember, mortgage 唔係 mortgage 咩 mortgage rate decreased, meaning cost of borrowing mortgage would decrease as well. 好啦 So the demand for mortgage would increase. 係咪啊？啲人做多啲按揭啦，而家咁平，係咪啊？That would automatically mean 好啦，既然啲人做多啲按揭，即係咩意思啊 ？Meaning the demand for private property would increase. 多咗人買樓咯，按揭平啊嘛，咪多咗人買樓咯，係嘛 ？So here demand would increase from D0 to D1. 好啦 ，another hand, Government announced that it would allocate more land for public housing instead of selling them to private property developer, right? So land for private would the supply decreases. 冇咁多地俾佢，喂冇地起咁即係有冇得起樓啊 ？No, therefore supply of private would also decrease. 好嘛 ？Meaning it drops from S0 to S1. Now therefore the price of private flat， 我哋而家講緊私人物業啊 ，private flat，OK，it would become like this， 即係仲貴咗反而係咪啊 ？Because of all this, it somehow turns out to be more expensive. OK， 好嘛？Now next time, if we want to trick you, actually, we can ask for the situation in the public housing market. 可以嘅喎，我可以問你 public housing 嘅喎，好嘛？So remember to read carefully what market we are asking. All right， 好嘛？So this question again, no need for any written explanation. No, that would be redundant. OK， 好嘛？好啦。One more, and then we will go to section B. 好嘛？好啦 The last question of section A. Now, country A is currently at its peak. Some politicians suggest that the government should increase both the income and profit tax rate. 好啦，第一個啦，原來 income tax rate and profit tax rate. 好啦 Now we need to evaluate whether evaluate the suggestion, the effects on aggregate output and fiscal balance. Now, aggregate output first. Remember, increasing income tax rate lowers the disposable income. Therefore, C will drop. Also, profit tax rate, it lowers the return from I, right? So, investment will drop. 係咪呢個唔知點解多咗個 G 字係咪啊？呢度嗱 investment 係咪我知咩 G 啦 gross investment expenditure will drop 係嘛？嗱 therefore AD will drop and the output will drop 好嘛？ Also I see some of you also written another thing, which is you mentioned income tax and profit tax rate increases. That means we will have a disincentive effect. 啱嘅呢個，好嘛 ？With this incentive effect, we know SRAS and LRAS would drop， 兩個都會跌啦，係咪啊 ？Now therefore, Y would also drop. This is also okay, totally fine, no problem， 好嘛？所以兩樣嘢啦 ，both of them would also make would also make AD or AS shift down. Okay, meaning will drop. Aggregate output will drop. 好嘛？that's output level. Here, it should be output level, right? 好嘛？好啦 On fiscal balance, fiscal balance is a little bit complicated. Okay, on one hand, we know there will be. I should type it this way, right? On one hand, we know higher the rate, meaning more income, right? But on another hand, because of this incentive effect, therefore, less people paying tax because they are not working. 係嘛？喂，好似收多咗，但係少咗人交稅啊。Okay, so for those who are paying tax, they will be paying more, but there will be fewer people paying tax. Therefore, actually, it is uncertain. 其實你唔知道個效果㗎，好嘛？ So you can answer in both ways. If the disincentive effect is low and the drop in investment is low, 係嘛？ The overall tax base it remains the same, 係嘛？ Higher tax rate, those kind of thing. 即係你要比較兩個啊。You need to compare the effects of higher tax rate versus the effect of this incentive effect, which will narrower the tax base. 睇下邊個勁啲啊？究竟係個率高咗，令到我收多咗錢啦，定係個 disincentive effect 令少咗人交稅啊？ Okay, see which one is stronger, 係咪啊? Or you can say decrease if the disincentive effect is high, the tax base becomes narrower, the tax rate only a little bit increase, etc. 好嘛，兩個都可以啦。好嘛， and that would conclude our section A. 好嘛， so I suggest this is the end for this video. Let's talk about section B in our very last video, in the next video. All right, see you very soon.